Okay, so let's get started. It's 10 o'clock. I hope you can all hear me okay. My name is Anahid Little. I am a third-year naturopathic medical student, and I am very interested in homeopathy. I run my school's homeopathy club. I'm very active in the homeopathic community here in Portland. It's something that I want to specialize in when I have my own practice. And I didn't know about homeopathy at all before I started school, but now it's everything I think about. And so I'm excited that you are all here and you want to learn about the Radar program. I've found that it's it's so helpful to know how to use this program to help you take a case, help you find a remedy, and analyze a case. It's been very helpful for me in my limited clinical experience so far. So before I get started, I just want to say that I am available for questions if you're having trouble with something. I have my email, anahid@radaropus.us. Please contact me if you have any questions, and I would also love to have feedback from you about things that you'd like to see more of, or something that you'd like me to do in a future video or a future training. So please email me. If you have any questions about today's talk, if you can go ahead and write them in the Q&A. So if you take your mouse and you go down to the bottom of your screen, since you're in Zoom, you should see kind of a column appear with all of these different buttons that you can click, and Q&A is one of those. So you can leave me a question during this presentation. We also have a chat room, but if you can leave it to me, your question in the Q&A, that would be easiest. And I will go ahead and answer your question, try to keep it on topic with today's seminar or today's lesson. And let's get started. So when you first open Radar, there are many things going on, many tabs. What we're going to focus on today is we're going to focus on learning how to find a rubric for a patient using our repertories, and learning what references are, and learning how to make clipboards with the information that we have, okay? So if I go over to the left of my screen, I have repertories and I have references. So repertories are going to be the books that contain rubrics. And you can see that I have 86 documents loaded. You might have less or more depending on what package you have. And the most common repertory that I use is Troyens. A lot of the other repertories are contained within Troyens, and so that's the one that I gravitate towards the most, but you can use whichever one you want. So you can follow along with me on your computer if that's easiest for you. So if you go to repertories, you can scroll down to Troyens, or you can start typing it in here and it will come up. So if we click Troyens, now I'm in Troyens, and I know I am because it says Troyens at the top here. If I click the little binoculars, these are all of the chapters that Troyens has. So, for example, if I wanted to repertorize that my patient has yellow-colored teeth that I'm noticing, what I would do is I would find the teeth chapter. So we have teeth here. So instead of using my mouse to click everything, it's the easiest just to start typing. It saves you a lot of time when you just start typing. So if I go ahead and I start typing in teeth, enter, and they had discoloration, so I'm going to type in discoloration, and then yellow. And then I hit enter again, and it brings me to that rubric. So again, it's very simple to type out your rubrics. You're going to spend a lot of time if you're always relying on your mouse to click on every rubric. So once I have that rubric that I want, I'm going to go ahead and drag it with my mouse. So I hover my mouse over the rubric that I want, click with my mouse pad, drag it to my clipboard. Okay? Right now I have 6 clipboards. I can have as many clipboards if I want. If I right-click on one of the clipboards, I can either have more clipboards or fewer. So at most, when I'm with a patient, I use 2 to 3 clipboards. So I just have 6 up because that's the default, but you can have as many as you want. So let's say that I wanted to look at the other colors of what teeth can be. I can just go ahead and press backspace, and it'll bring me to the other colors of what my patient's teeth may have, the other rubrics. So again, I can hit backspace again, backspace, and I can go back to Troyens with all of the chapters. So that is why not relying on your mouse is so important. It's so much faster. If I wanted to look now, let's say my patient has stiffness of their shoulders. They're really complaining of that. I don't even have to touch the binoculars. I can just type in extremities. Just start typing in extremities and the chapter will come up. Hit enter. And it's not shoulders, it's stiffness of their shoulders. Hit enter and hit enter again. And here I have the rubric that I can now drag into my clipboard. So I'm going to take a little pause, about 30 seconds or so, because I want you at home to pull up your radar and start and find this rubric. Extremities, stiffness of the shoulders. And I want you to not rely on your mouse. So go ahead and start typing in extremities, enter, stiffness, enter, shoulders, enter. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, as you're practicing, Bonnie asked, what is the difference between core synthesis and treasure addition? That is a good question. I use Synthesis Treasure Edition 2009. Okay, so it looks like Core Synthesis came out in 2016. So it's actually, it looks like that is the newest version of Troyens' book. So I would assume that it's a more updated version, Core Synthesis. So I should probably switch to using Core Synthesis now. since it looks like it's an updated version of the Synthesis Treasure Edition. That was a good question. And if I go ahead in Course Synthesis and let me find extremities, stiffness of the shoulders. Okay, great. There's still 24 remedies, which is great. Okay. We will come back to practicing finding rubrics, but I wanted to briefly go over what references are. So we used repertories, and now we can use references. So references are going to be your materia medicas of remedies. If I click references, I have a lot of references. And some of my favorites that I like to use, I really like to use Boriki. So and they're all in different languages, so I'm going to click the English one. If I click that, it's going to bring up Boriki here on my screen. And I can just start typing again. Any button will bring up the chapters, and then I want remedies. Let's say I want to look at chelidonium. I'll start typing in chelidonium, enter, enter, and it will bring me up a description of what chelidonium is. If I want to look at another remedy within Boriki, I can just go ahead and hit backspace. Oh, okay, it's not working. So I can go ahead and double click on remedies. It will bring up the list again. And let's say I want to find magnesium phosphoricum. I can start typing in mag, and with my keypad I can go down to phosphoricum, hit enter. Let's say I really want to look at the stomach, what magnesia phosphoricus covers for the stomach. I can go ahead with my keypad, the down space, and go all the way down to stomach and hit enter. Or I can just start typing in stomach and it will come up. Enter, enter. So everything that I'm showing you, you have to get used to this program. The more you use it, the more helpful it will be for you in your practice, because once you are fast at this, you can look up rubrics like really fast and put them in clipboards and analyze cases. You just have to get used to using the program. So another reference that I like to use, I like to use Margaret Tyler. So I typed in Tyler, pointers to the common remedies. I like this reference. So at home, if you can open Tyler's, so go ahead and go to references, start typing in Tyler, and under therapeutics, click pointers to the common remedies. And then once you're in there, you can start typing in, you can type any key that you'd like. I just typed in M, and that brought me up to, the M section. I can backspace, and that shows all of the chapters within Margaret Tyler. So I can go ahead and look through all of these. Let's say that I want to look under headache. I can start typing in headache, enter, And now let's say I want to look under sulfur. I can start typing in sulfur. And then click enter again, and that is going to pull up what sulfur is indicated for under headaches. So why don't you at home try to pull up, let's say, Apus. So we're in Margaret Tyler. We're going to go, we want to see what headaches look for Apus. So we type in headache, and I start typing in Apus. Enter, enter. It's going to show me what Apus looks like for a headache. Okay? So you could do this by clicking on everything. You could click on, you can find headache and you can double click on it, and then you could, try to find Apus and double click on it, but that takes a lot more time than just typing it in. That's why I keep on stressing that you really want to minimize your use of the mouse. So let's go back to our repertories. And we want to pull up Troyens again. And course synthesis. And let's say that I wanted to, that my patient has edema of his lower legs due to heart failure. And this was somebody that I saw in my clinic. Okay? So that sounds like edema to me. So I'm going to go ahead and type in, I'm going to start typing generals. Great. And then enter. And edema. Enter. So we can see that in Troyens, the word edema actually wants us to go to swelling, puffy, edematous. So in Troyens, the word edema does not show up. Radar is really good about giving you, if you type in a word that it doesn't have a rubric for, it will give you the rubrics that you may want to use instead. So if I go ahead and double click on this rubric, now it's going to give me general, swelling, puffy, edematous. I can go ahead and drag that into my clipboard now. So everybody at home, why don't you try that? So we're going to the binoculars. We are typing in generals. And hitting enter. And then edema. Enter. And we see that edema does not exist in Troyens, and so we have to double click on swelling. And then drag that into a clipboard. If I drag it into a clipboard, it's already in my clipboard. So let's say that because homeopathic words have changed over the last 200 years, let's say that I want to look up what homeopaths used to call edema because it's not in the repertory. A really great reference you can use is called Yazgar. It is a homeopathic dictionary. So if I go over to references and I start typing in Yazgar, So under dictionaries and others, Yasgur comes up. So now I want to do a search of Yasgur for the definition of edema. So I'm going to start typing in. I just hit any word so that the table of contents can come up. And I want dictionary. So I'll start typing in dictionary, enter, and I wanted edema. And edematous, that sounds good. So I'm going to downspace, hit enter, enter again. So I look and it says anasarca, ascites, dropsy, hydrops. So those are all of the words that homeopaths used to use for the word edema. So now I can search these words. Dropsy is an old antiquated term for edema. So if I go back to Troyens, so how I go back to Troyens is open on the top right here. I can click Troyens. So I have Yasgur open and I have Troyens open. I can go back and forth easily. And I want to backspace. So backspace. Under generals, now because of Yasgur, I know to use the word dropsy. So I can type in dropsy, go down, and my patient has external dropsy that I can see. So external dropsy from heart disease. So I can start typing in from heart disease, and this is the exact rubric that I want for my patient. External edema, also known as dropsy from heart disease. So I can go ahead and drag that into my clipboard now. Let me know if I'm going too fast for everyone. So what I want you to do now is find this rubric. So on your radar program at home, find generals, dropsy, external dropsy from heart disease, and try not to use your mouse. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to practice that. If you have a hard time getting started, you can go to Troyens and just start typing in generals, and that chapter will come up. So I'll just start typing in generals, dropsy, enter, external dropsy, from heart disease. So heart, and then I'll drag that in my clipboard. Okay, we are going to practice another rubric that I've used and I've found very helpful. So my patient, one of my patients, has cracked skin in her hands. That is worse in the winter time. So it's very specific. That's a great remedy when you have a location, a modality, the modality is winter, the location is the hands, and what the hands are, they're cracked. That's a great rubric to use. So I can just start typing in extremities. Extremities. Enter. And I want to, and her hands are cracked. So if I start trying to find hands, that is not, see, I can see that no, it's not under hands complaints of. So it's actually her extremities are cracked, so cracked skin of the hands. So in the repertory language, you kind of have to go backwards with your thoughts. So extremities cracked of the hands, not extremities hands that are cracked. And the more you use this, it's a learning process. The more you learn how to navigate the repertory language. So extremities cracked, skin, hands, and winter aggravates. Enter. I can drag that into my clipboard. And I can go back and I can see if anything else comes up. So extremities, cracked skin of the hands. Is it burning? Is it cold? Is it itching? If it was itching, there's only 2 remedies, but I could see what those remedies are and just keep them in mind. So another thing, when we look at repertories, there are all of these little letters next to our, oh, how am I dragging information? Great question, Judith. How I'm dragging information is I'm going ahead. So let's say I wanted to put in this rubric, painful. I put my cursor over painful, down click, so just a regular mouse click, and then I bring my cursor over to the clipboard. So again, if I wanted to do back of hands, right? Click on this rubric, drag it with my cursor into the clipboard that I want. So everybody, let's just try that with a rubric. Painful. Drag it to the clipboard that you want. I was, yeah, that's where I was going. All of these little names, they are the author that put the remedy in that rubric. So K is Kent, who was a really great homeopath. K2 is also Kent. Let's find another one. I don't know who GK0 is, so what I can do is I can just click on GK0 and it brings me up who the author is. So Alphon Gookens. So it looks like he's from Belgium. Now I can go back to my core synthesis by just clicking on it. And I can look, so BG2 is Boger, but if I didn't know that, I could click on Boger and it will tell me who put that in. So it's not very important to me to know who put the remedy in, but if I have a rubric that my patient has, and the remedy I'm thinking of is put in by Kent or Boger or Herring or Hahnemann, I know that those homeopaths were very reliable and very good at what they did. And so their remedies carry more weight for me in my mind when I'm looking for a patient. So that's something that you can keep in mind. Now, yours might not show all of these little names because this might be turned off. If you hit this button called Show Authors, it will either have them there or have them go away. Does that make sense? So I like it, so I just leave it on. So at home, why don't you just go ahead and click this and see how that changes the look of your repertory. The remedies, if your Troyens looks like this and you can't even see the remedies, it's because this button somehow was hit, was pressed, and your remedies are turned off. So you can go ahead and hide your remedies or show them. You can show your authors or you can hide them, whatever you'd like to do. Okay? So that is what these do. So we are now going to type in, or not type in, but we're just going to go over to our clipboard and see what our clipboard looks like. So we have been dragging in rubrics into our clipboards. And when I take a patient case, I have usually 20 to 30 rubrics that I have dragged into my clipboard, and now I'm analyzing them. So I can go ahead and hover over this little line here and bring this over so I can see my clipboards and the different rubrics that I have. So again, it's just this line. I can change it however I'd like. And I can go ahead and see, so sepia is coming up number 1. Sepia is a grade 2 under our first rubric, says 2 here. It's a grade 2 under this rubric. It's a grade 3 under cracked skin, hands in the winter aggravates. So I'm sure you are all familiar with the grading, but how Radar grades the rubrics, if there is just no capitalization, no bold, no underline. So Illumina, for example, is a grade 1 under this rubric. Mercurius is a grade 2 because it's italicized and it's blue. Petroleum is a grade 3 because it's red and bold and capitalized. And sepia, if we look here, is red, bold, capitalized, and underlined. So that's a grade 4. So that is how Radar shows the grades. And it's very similar to repertories. I have Troyens' book, and it looks very similar. But that is how you can tell what grade a remedy is. Okay? So if I go back to my clipboard, I see that sepia is coming up as number 1. Sulfur is close behind, Graphites, Colchicum, Mercurius. These numbers here, I don't really take note of them too much, but what they mean, so sepia is the number 1, sulfur is the number 2. The number below that is saying how many rubrics that sepia is in. So sepia is in 3 rubrics that I've put in so far. 1, 2, 3. The 7 is adding up all of these numbers. So 3 plus 2 plus 2. That's what's giving me this 7. So as you can see, sulfur is the same. It's in 3 rubrics. And if you add the score, it's a 7. So that is what these numbers mean. You can take note of those if you'd like. I don't really take note of them too much, but it's good to know what they mean so that you don't get confused. Okay? If I wanted to have an overview of sepia, sepia, what does sepia, the overall picture, look like? I can go ahead, hover over the word sepia, and double click. And what this is doing is it will give me an overview of what sepia looks like. Sepia is really big for stasis. So what did we just go into? We went into a reference called Archibald. Really fast, Erin asked, I often have 20 to 30 rubrics, and when I have so many, I have trouble navigating. So I often have 20 to 30 rubrics in a clipboard. When I have so many, I have trouble navigating up and down the list. The program doesn't let me highlight one to rearrange it when I have so many. Okay. Let me see. Let me look at this. So if I had a lot, is there a way? I don't think there's a way to drag the order of the rubrics that you'd like to rearrange it. You know what, Erin? I am going to make a note and look into that to see if there's a way to rearrange the different rubrics. So let's say that you have 30 rubrics and you'd like to see rubrics more. Something you can do, and we are going to cover this. Okay, great. Something you can do, Erin, and we are going to cover this in our next video, but I can just preview for everybody here. If you have a rubric, like let's say cracked skin, hands, winter aggravates, if I go ahead and right-click on the rubric, I can change the intensity and the qualification of a rubric. So if my patient, if this is a very strong modality, every winter they get cracked hands. Every winter it happens, ever since they were 10 years old. And I really, their remedy must be in that rubric. I can go ahead and right-click. I can go down to change qualifications. I can make this an eliminative rubric. And that means that that has now gotten rid of any remedies that are not in that rubric. So that's something that we will cover again in the next video. But I use this if I feel very certain about a rubric and I know that my patient, their remedy needs to be in that rubric. I will use that function, okay? I'm just going to change it back to normal for the purposes today. So let's get back to sepia. So in my clipboard, I wanted to know sepia, so I double-clicked on it, and it brought up a description of what sepia is. If I want to look and see, oh, what does sepia look like, I can go ahead and click the multimedia button and go through. Oh, look at how cute, the little cuttlefish. This is what sepia is. I can exit out of here, and I like knowing where my remedies come from. So I like to click the little multimedia button a lot when I'm learning remedies. I don't use this families much at all, but I can go back to keynotes and look at what, mine, the generalities, the food and drinks, the head. So this is kind of a synopsis of sepia, okay? With the more apparent and strong features of sepia in bold. So pain on the left side over the left eye. You really want to think of sepia, spigelia, thuya for that particular symptom, okay? So where this is coming from is if we go to references, which is our materia medica, and we start typing in Archibald keynotes for radar. So this is a reference that Radar put together. And if we go ahead and click on that, this is the reference that comes up when we click on a rubric in our clipboard. I hope that's not confusing to you all, but I just want you to know that when you click on sulfur, that is the reference that's coming up. It's an Archibald keynotes, okay? You can also get to this. Let's say I really wanted to look at the remedy veratrum and I wanted an overview. If I go to the top bar here, I can click remedies and I can go ahead and start typing in veratrum. Veratrum album. I can double click on veratrum and it's going to pull up the synopsis of veratrum, and this is going to be under the keynotes of Archibald, okay? So this is a great way to kind of find an overview of what a remedy is. So I have a question. Can I explain why several different clipboards are used in the analysis? So, so I put in multiple rubrics in a clipboard, right? You don't have to have multiple clipboards in an analysis. Something I do, and like I said, I'm learning homeopathy, I'm new to it, is I will have one clipboard with, like if I tried to analyze a case and I gave a remedy and it didn't work, I might want to analyze a case again, trying to find different rubrics and putting them into a new clipboard to see what other remedies can come up. But that is, using multiple clipboards for a patient is totally up to you as the homeopath as to what you want to do. At my school, Dr. Zorn, he uses the same clipboard for the same patient. He doesn't have multiple clipboards. So it's just up to you and what you want to do. I just have 2 clipboards up, I guess because I started dragging it into another clipboard. I could have put it all into the same clipboard. So let's do that. Let's say I have a clipboard here, and I really want this rubric, extremities, cracked skin, hands painful. I want to put that into my first clipboard, okay? And bear with me. I think all you have to do is just drag it in. But let's see if that works. What I would probably do, because it looks like I can't drag it in, drag in the rubric, I mean. Yeah, doesn't, oh, no, it doesn't look like it's working. What I can do is I can double click on that rubric. So I'm going to double click. It brought me to the chapter in Troyens where that rubric is. And then I can go ahead and drag it to, oh, because it's already in that clipboard, my first clipboard. So let's try that again. So drop C. So it does drag it. If you drag a remedy into a different clipboard, it will take it out of the clipboard that you dragged it into. So I'm going to drag in this one. It will take it out of the one that I dragged it from. Okay? Another way you can put rubrics into clipboards. I don't use this way, but what you can do, if you see this cursor here, this pointer, and if you hit this button will put whatever this pointer has, that rubric, into the clipboard with the check mark. Okay? So if I didn't want to drag it, I can just click this and it puts it into that clipboard. But you have to make sure if you use that feature that the clipboard you want has the check mark on it. If you're trying to put it in this rubric and you click that button, it's going to put it in the rubric or the clipboard that you don't want. You also have to be careful that your cursor here, this pointer, is over the right rubric. Like let's say I'm looking at the word painful and I'm getting so excited that I just click it. It's going to put winter aggravates in that rubric. So you can use this button as you'd like, but I personally like to drag the rubric so that I make sure that I'm getting the right rubric I want into the right clipboard, because this can be a little dangerous for me personally. But that's another way you can put a rubric into a clipboard. Okay? So let's do a couple more rubrics so that you at home can practice using your keyboard and you don't rely on your mouse. So let's say that, and I'm just going to make a rubric off the top of my head. So I want you to go into Troyens, and let's say that your patient, let's say that they love milk, that they crave drinking milk, and that is so strong with them, and you want to find that rubric, that they crave drinking milk. Okay? So we're going to go into Troyens. If Troyens is not up here, so let's just say that I'm trying to go into Troyens, but I don't have it up. What I can do, go to repertories, start typing in Troyens, and I'm going to use core synthesis because it's the updated version, but you can use either. Here I have Troyens up, And I'm going to start typing in. So every food craving is in generals chapter. So I'm going to start typing in generals. Enter. Food and drink. And they crave milk. So milk. Enter. Desire, right? They desire milk. Enter and enter. So I can go ahead and now click with my cursor and drag this over into my first rubric. You can see here that if I hit backspace once, that's going to bring me to desire, and there's sub-rubrics. So within desire, there's desires cold milk, desires hot milk, sour milk, warm milk. I can go ahead and click or start typing in sour, and that's a sub-rubric of the original rubric. So I just want you all to know that these things are sub-rubrics, what we're seeing, okay? So at home, why don't you find the rubric where your patient desires, let's say, chocolate. And I hope that's a rubric, so I'm going to try to find it too, okay? So start typing in generals. And food and drink. Enter. Chocolate. It's in there. Great. Enter. Desire. Enter. And they didn't necessarily like bitter chocolate, so I don't want to use that rubric, so I'm just going to hit enter, and it's going to bring me to food and drink desires chocolate, which now I can drag into my clipboard. Okay? I want to make sure I covered everything with you. Does anybody have any questions right now regarding how to look in a repertory, how to look in a reference, how to drag rubrics into clipboards, anything like that? If you do, you can comment or you can leave me a Q&A before our session ends. The most important thing, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but you really want to not rely on your mouse as much as you can. Try as you can to just type everything. Head, pain, after anger. I can get to rubrics so much faster when I don't rely on my mouse. If I were to do that same rubric, trying to rely on my mouse, I would click on head. I'd have to go down all the way to pain. Pain, here we go. I'd have to double click on it. If I double click on the wrong thing, it will just go away and I have to start over again. So that's why, as much as you can, you have to get used to just typing in your rubrics. It will save you so much time and so much headache, okay? So that's something that you should try to do. So I have a quick question here. What's the difference between unselecting and deleting a rubric from a clipboard? So I know deleting. Let me try to see what unselecting means. Unselect all rubrics. That is a good question. So if I right click and I have unselect all rubrics, so I wonder if it has to do with this. Let's see. Unselect all rubrics. And I am not sure what unselect means. And so I will figure that out, Robert, and I will, in our next video, we're going to be focusing on the clipboard functions, everything, you know, what all of these things do. So I will definitely figure that out on my own time before the next video, okay? So that I don't stumble around here and try to figure out what that means. Oh, select all. Oh, that is what it is. It's very easy. So if I go ahead and right click and I say select all rubrics, that's going to select and highlight all of my rubrics. I don't know why you would do that, truthfully. I never use that function, but if you were to right click and then unselect all rubrics, that is the difference. So deleting a rubric, I can right click and I can hit delete. That is going to take the rubric away from the clipboard. And unselect, you have to hit select all rubrics before you can hit unselect all rubrics. So it's just a way to select all of these. If you wanted to move all of these into another clipboard, I guess you could select all of the rubrics and then move them all to a different clipboard. That's the reason you would use that. Okay? Not something I use a lot of, though. So deleting a rubric deletes it from your clipboard. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions? I hope this was helpful. We kind of had a brief overview. In the next video, we will practice using, finding rubrics and the repertories, searching in the reference, and what we will also do is we will go very slowly through what all of these mean. So what does change intensity, qualification? How do you combine rubrics? Let's say that you want to combine, desire for chocolate with, desire and ameliorates, or you have two rubrics that are very similar to each other because different authors put them in, and you want to see, and you just want to combine and make a new rubric. I do that a lot when I'm with patients. So we'll go through all of that in the next video, okay? And we'll have a little sample case where I will give you rubrics and you can find them and make clipboards from them, okay? So I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm going to pull up my email. If you have any questions, I'm here to support you guys, okay? I know this computer program can be a little daunting, but it doesn't need to be. You just need to practice, and I'm here to support you. And please give me feedback about how the video went. Okay? Thank you all. Have a great Sunday. I'll see you next time. Bye.